not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left.
That's the voice of Donald Trump. And that speech, the infamous speech. And we all, well, most of us, remember what ensued after.
Which is what they're doing.
The January 6th riot led to charges against nearly 1,600 people.
Which is ironic because if you think about 1,600 people in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's continue.
Nationwide. Some of those cases hit close to home, including Paul Hodgkins of Tampa, captured on camera inside the U.S. Capitol waving a Trump flag.
Eventually protested inside of the Senate chamber, and later on that year I was arrested and ended up being the very first.
I caught up with Hodgkins today, who was in Washington, D.C., attending a march marking 5 years since the attack.
Do not regret standing up for my president, my country, where I know that we were wrong.
Hodgkins served 8 months in prison, and just a year ago when we last spoke to him, he shared one hope.
Indescribably honored and gracious if I was to be blessed with a pardon by President Trump.
Fast forward to this year.
On his first day back in office, I was pardoned by President Trump. That, had a very positive impact on my life.
But those pardons are sparking sharp backlash. Critics say.
Okay, so and next we're going to go to some audio from USA Today, where the title says Trump's attempt to rewrite January 6th history. Again, Trump's attempt to rewrite January 6th history. Let's continue. Again, fair use, courtesy of USA Today.
Page on January 6th, calling the people who charged and used as political examples, end quote. Hello and welcome to USA Today's The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. What really happened 5 years ago on January 6th, 2021? Is this revisionist history, or are there two legitimate sides to this story? For more on this, I'm now joined by USA Today White House correspondent Mark Jansen and national correspondent Sarah Wire. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. All right, let's set the scene. What led up to the events here on January 6th, 2021?
Well, Trump lost the 2020 election. And after that loss, he continued to argue that voting irregularities.
So this is the context. This is the context, the background for what many people believe from their perspective led up to what subsequently has been named as an insurrection, the attack on the Capitol. Let's continue. And for those of you just joining, welcome. Happy weekend. And again, Happy New Year, as we're just 10 days in to 2026. And it has, as in my title, mayhem, especially in Minneapolis, which we'll get to, and more. So let's continue. I'm just setting the stage for all of this. And it began with the 5-year anniversary, of January 6th.
Cost him that he basically has argued since then that he won. He did not, but his lawyers fielded 60 lawsuits to try to challenge the results. They lost in all but one of them. His campaign lawyers, such as Rudy Giuliani, never produced evidence of widespread voter.
And as a side note, I'm going to do a hard stop right there. Rudy Giuliani found himself in hot water, and he ended up having to pay the piper to those two individuals in Georgia who he said, who he claimed directly interfered with the votes in Georgia. Let's continue.
Fraud. And so the election results were upheld and Joe Biden became president. But before the inauguration on January 20th, Trump organized a rally at the Ellipse near the White House to give a speech on January 6th when the electoral college votes were going to be counted in Congress. He sent out an invitation on social media on December 19th, 2020, saying, "We'll be wild." And thousands of people showed up. They listened to his speech. He, early in the speech, encouraged protesters to behave peacefully and patriotically. But later in the speech, as he ramped up, he said that they should fight for the future of the country, that if they don't fight, that they will lose their country, in encouraging the protesters to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue to protest at the Capitol. At the Capitol, thousands of people swarmed, and
in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, again, this is my opinion, the words fight, that some people, it appeared from my optics, some of you in the chat, some of you who may catch the replay may see it differently, but to me, though, those words fight, especially those who are extremely loyal to the president, and I understand, I get it. Seems to me they took those words not only figuratively but literally. So let's continue.
many entered the building in hand-to-hand fighting that left 140 police officers injured.
140 police officers injured. Again, 140 police officers were injured during this, I'm going to say melee, if you will.
So his encouragement has been criticized as inciting the riot that took place on January 6th.
Sarah, you were one of the very few reporters who were in the actual chamber where the transfer of power was to happen with the counting of the electoral votes. Normally, some would say a very boring process. What did you see?
Oh, it is normally a very boring process. It's the kind of thing you send the intern to. But we knew it was going to be contested that day. And so we were just kind of waiting to see what had happened. It felt pretty routine and normal until there was a alert that went out warning everyone to shelter in place. And then a short time later, there was the House Sergeant at Arms walked out onto the floor and interrupted the proceedings, something that never happened. And explained that protesters had gotten into the rotunda. And
Again, I've said this before and I will continue to say that. In my opinion, in my strong opinion, just by being in the area and knowing what I know, this could not have happened if not for, again, my opinion, assistance from others. Let's continue.
started handing out gas masks to members of Congress. And the whole atmosphere in the room just changed. Suddenly members of Congress were screaming at each other. One member got on to a desk and started explaining how to put the gas masks on. They proceeded to evacuate the members of Congress. But there were still a lot of us up in the upper galleries. It was the middle of COVID. And so many members of Congress were up on the upper level. And I'll never forget the sound of those doors locking at the upper level. They're 8-foot doors. and hearing those slam shut, boom, 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 boom. Now, kind of a little known fact that Capitol Police, their job is to protect the continuity of government. If there's a natural disaster or an attack on the Capitol, their job is to make sure that as many members of Congress survive as possible so the government can still function. And members of Congress started yelling over the balcony, "What about us? What about us?" And you could just see, we were on our own. And you could begin hearing the protesters and the rioters banging on the door to the chamber that the president walks in for the State of the Union. They broke through the glass, and police pushed a big chest in front of the doors, and they were arguing back and forth, and some guns were drawn. And they told the members of the press and the members of Congress to get down on their bellies and go over to one side of the chamber. And that's when we heard the gunshot that killed one of the protesters, Ashley Babbitt, who was trying to climb into the House chamber. And
My condolences to her and her family, friends, and loved ones. And I'm going to say this, and I do not want to be offensive, but I'm not sure if she was told or asked or commanded to what happened to the young woman in Minneapolis and others that have lost their lives. If they only complied, I would ask you to remember, always remember, to match the same energy. One person's life isn't more valuable, in my opinion, than another's. We all are human beings, even though we all may not act like it. We are all human beings, and no one, no matter how you feel, no matter who you support, should you lose your life. Now, there are nuances to this when it comes to law enforcement, and we'll get to that later, because there's a misnomer out there that there's justifications, and ICE are police officers. That's what some people think. So let's look at this really quickly. And all it takes is a little bit of research, but it seems like to me some people don't want to do their research. And I'm going to come back to this later, but this is just a little cheat sheet for some of you all who may not quite understand the role of ICE. And I haven't heard too much about what the exact operation was in Minneapolis. Were they concluding, or were they just beginning this operation? Because there's a lot of information or narrative out there concerning the late Miss Good. But what was the exact operation? Was it fulfilling immigration issues? Because under scope, it clearly says ICE focuses on immigration. Police handle all crimes, traffic, theft, etc. So let's keep that in mind. So that was just a little bit of audio that you can find again in its entirety, courtesy of USA Today, and the title is Trump's Attempt to Rewrite January 6th History. So next, we're going to take a little break and get into Mayhem and Minneapolis. Again, welcome to everyone. Welcome. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. This is the weekend show. I'm your hostess, Lise.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me.
Bro, we broke up with you for a reason. Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away. Bro.
I know you lying. 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 I know you lying.
Okay, and we are back, and we're getting ready to talk about the unfortunate incident in Minneapolis and ICE. Now, let me go ahead and place up my viewer discretion disclaimer. Again, fair use. First, I'm going to show you a clip. Now, keep in mind, there are many, many angles, many, many perspectives, which again, I respect and welcome all perspectives on this horrible, horrible case. But after this, I'm going to share with you all something that I want you to pay very close attention to. So again, I would first give my condolences again to the family, friends, and loved ones of Miss Good. And encourage those who may be triggered to perhaps leave during the next few moments, because I'm going to put up a clip. But I want to say that I have questions, because a lot of this, to me, is censored in some places, and others, you understand some reasons why, but key pieces to me should not have been beat out. So again, some of you may want to take a moment to leave at this time, and if you're not triggered or bothered, and I don't see how many people shouldn't be, you can make the decision. So this is one of the latest angles. And again, I saw this earlier where someone else had taken footage, and there are claims that J.D. Vance has encouraged the public to view this, and they're saying that Kristi Noem and J.D. Vance actually leaked, if you will, if you can even claim this was a leak, who this person was, because I thought the ideology behind covering up the faces is to avoid being what they call doxing, or to avoid being in danger. But the information given, it seems like possibly, I have my doubts, but again, I could be wrong, that this individual has been identified. So this is the video, allegedly, and I have to say that, and I'm also going to add unconfirmed reports that this is video from the phone of the agent. Let's roll this.
Change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Whoa!
Now, there are several angles, and there are many people that claim that he was not injured. There are other people that say that he was. There's video that shows that he is walking away, apparently, without incident. There are a lot of things to take away from this. There are people that have saying that she was a paid agitator, and I'm going to ask the question again for those of you that view the live that I have pinned. Were the two individuals that were asked to leave the January 6th anniversary, were they paid agitators, and why did they leave? And why were they allowed to leave without being arrested or detained or questioned? You can see that this individual, this ICE individual, walked around the vehicle, and there is technology out there that there's an app where agents use to scan faces. It's basic facial recognition. This has been out for a while, but where they don't have to do certain things, they can pretty much find out through facial recognition and punch it into a database to see your status. I'm not sure how they could assume that there was an immigration issue with Miss Good and her partner, her wife, who was right there and witnessed everything. There's controversy and conversation of whether or not this individual was hit with the vehicle. My perspective, no. You hear something, but was it the cell phone he had in his hand? You could clearly see from that video, and again, it took several days for that to be released, and I'm not being sinister, but we all know certain things can be altered, definitely censored. We've seen that with the Epstein files and the Epstein documentation, which I might put a footnote in. Kash Patel, how is that coming along? You were asked to provide those documents almost a year ago today. from Pam Bondi. Nothing has happened. So let's keep that in mind. And what many people have seen so far, heavily redacted. We're going to listen to audio from attorneys on retainer as it relates to the mayhem in Minneapolis. And these are self-defense attorneys. And this, again, this is just their perspective. So we're going to get right into that. Again, fair use. And for those of you that are triggered and are squeamish, you may want to leave. Broadcast. I'm your hostess, Lise, and I'm going to continue again with attorneys on retainer as they discuss from their perspective the incident, the horrible incident, the ICE involved incident.
This ICE agents, I guess they're from Texas. ICE agents. So a lot of people walking around the vehicles, talking and everything.
Concluded. I haven't heard, and it could be out there somewhere. There's a lot of things on the internet that unfortunately I don't have the capacity nor time to go through each and every one of them. But I haven't heard too many people speak about what the actual operation was. Let's continue.
Operations, or she was obstructing their operation way, so they approach her vehicle and get her to exit the vehicle. About it. They thought that it was intentional.
Considered or could have been considered detained at that time by her being asked or commanded to exit the vehicle. So let's continue.
You are subject to a traffic stop, right? The officers generally have a right to get out of the car. You have to get out of the car. That goes passengers, people in the back, most places. So she had a legal obligation to get out of the car. She didn't get out of the car. The ICE agent front of the door. Does that give the ICE agent?
I call it down the middle, not being biased. So this self-defense attorney says she had a legal obligation to exit the vehicle. However, she did not. So your thoughts and opinions on that. Let's continue.
But it is relevant. If the guy is charged with a crime, the defense attorney will bring it up as a relevant factor in his mental state at the time that he pulls the trigger. Is he dealing with a law-abiding citizen who's making
continue to ask, and it's going to play out for a very long time. Because again, from my optics, I could be wrong. And again, this is just my opinion. He did not appear, nor his partners after the act was completed, to be distraught at all. It seems like to me he was more concerned with making sure that he had his cell phone in his hand, and he left the scene. He left the scene. Everyone saw that on video. There is nothing to refute that. Is that protocol that you leave the scene? Rendering aid. There are a lot of people up in arms about this, and they should be. But let's not forget Sonia Massey, who was 36 at the time, where Sean Grayson unloaded. Where? In her face. For what? Many people say, well, if she only complied. And what was his response? Self-defense. So in that case, in the case of Sean Grayson and Sonia Massey, a steaming pot of water was the weapon. And what many people are saying, or at least trying to paint the narrative as it relates to Miss Good, it was her vehicle. Let's continue. Again, this is courtesy of Attorneys on Retainer.
Or serious physical injury. The argument is that, well, yes, because this woman was trying to run him over with a vehicle. And from what I can see, it's a big point to people who think that this is not a justified shoot. Note that the front tires are clearly turned. It doesn't look like the driver of the vehicle is intentionally trying to run the officer over.
That is from a self-defense attorney, that it does not appear. Again, these are all perspectives, and keep in mind, everyone has an opinion. So this is what he's saying, that it doesn't appear. Let's continue to see what he says afterward. Because again, this is a self-defense attorney.
That's not the question. The question is, what did the officer reasonably believe? The officer says, I looked and I saw the front tires were turned, and it was clear to me she was trying to run me over. Okay, wrong answer. That's a guilty. He's likely going to say, I wasn't looking at the tires. I was looking at the woman who I thought was going to run me over. So he's got a reasonable mistake of fact. And as we know, because reasonable mistake of fact is perfectly fine.
Full defense.
Full defense if that itself would justify the act of self-defense.
Yeah, so let me go over a few guiding principles here. Just quickly knock a few things out.
Okay, so your thoughts and opinions on that. Again, it goes back to what he reasonably thought. And we are not in the minds of anyone. We can only speculate. So let's continue.
Number one, a vehicle in this jurisdiction, when driven recklessly or dangerously, is treated exactly the same as a dangerous weapon. Somebody is driving a car at you, they might as well be pointing a firearm at you in terms of how you're allowed to respond. Number two, he has to justify each one of the shots in this case. There are 3 shots that are fired.
Please pay close attention to that. He has to justify each, and there were 3, according to this account. Let's continue.
And once again, in our hot take video today, we're not sure if the analysis, the forensics, has been done at this point to determine which one of those 3 bullets actually caused death.
If forensics hasn't been done as of yet, in my opinion, if Kash Patel and the FBI is at the helm, which I believe they are, you can pretty much kiss the integrity of that. And this is just my opinion. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good riddance. Let's continue.
That's going to end up being relevant.
That could be really
And as nitpicky as that sounds, that's going to end up being relevant. But he's going to be charged potentially for each one of those rounds that came out of his firearm. And so we are going to analyze them.
So let's talk about the first round.
Okay, so they're about to break down each. Okay, there were 3. Let's continue again, courtesy of attorneys on retainer. Again, this is the weekend broadcast. Minneapolis Mayhem and more. I'm your hostess, Lise. For those of you that are just joining, please make sure, if you would be so kind, to double tap your screens, or depending upon the device you are using, please consider giving this a thumbs up. If you're new, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. Great to see you again virtually. Let's continue.
Me, like he's standing in front of me. It looks to me like he reasonably believed, whether it was correct or not, he reasonably believed that she was attempting to run him down. His best argument here is, I thought she was trying to run me down, therefore I pulled my firearm. I was at imminent risk of death or serious physical injury. That's why I discharged that round. They have a very good argument, at least as to the first shot.
Okay, so this self-defense attorney says he may have a very good defense on the first shot. Okay? So your thoughts and opinions on that. This is a self-defense attorney who says he might have a very good defense on the first shot. Let's see what they have to say on the second 2. Let's continue.
Shot looks very defensive. You can see in the angles that are publicly available, he is standing not full-blown center in front of the hood of the vehicle, but definitely in front of the hood of the vehicle. What does he know at the time? He knows that this person is committing a crime, is not complying with officers, and instead of getting out of the vehicle as demanded, has just hit the gas. And whether she peels out, you can actually see how fast the wheels spin. You know, this isn't a turbocharged SUV, but it certainly pedal to the metal with the size of this vehicle.
Well, I mean, perhaps, but let's keep in mind she just was injured, but perhaps unalived at that time, and that could have caused her to accelerate. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. But let's continue to listen to the self-defense attorneys. They're lawyers. I am not.
Out of there. So I think he has a reasonable belief at that point. He's trying to run.
So again, they're saying that he has a reasonable belief. He has a reasonable belief. Again, we're not in his mind. We can only speculate and go by what we see, what we think, what we feel. But at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, we are not in his mind. So if there's a prosecution on a state level, this is something that he would argue, or his defense attorneys would argue for him. Let's continue.
It was clear to me she didn't like ICE agents. She didn't like me. And so he's going to be, I think, good from that first shot. Other shots that concern me quite a bit. Now, if he's not a police officer, right, to me, the second, at least the third, it looked like there were 3 shots, maybe the evidence.
And that's why I put this up earlier, and let's revisit that. He's not a police officer. And revisit what the roles of ICE and Border Patrol differences and similarities are. I'll leave that up while we continue.
A little differently. But at least one of those, the last one, looked to me like he was not in danger of being hit by that vehicle. In fact, it looked
looks like he's completely perpendicular to the vehicle.
Absolutely. 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 Where did to pull out allegedly unconfirmed reports from sources his weapon? Where was the fear? Again, there could have been. I personally don't see it, but again, I'm not him. I wasn't there. Let's continue.
Kind of pointing into the vehicle, totally out of the way of its path, firing into the glass.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time, I think, making an argument at least as to that final shot. At the lethal shot, I don't know.
Again, forensics. Which discharge was the lethal one? That's a very good perspective. Let's continue.
Maybe it isn't. The evidence will clear that up. Maybe it won't. But
Again, it's been quite a while now. I would go out on them to say that from what I've observed from the good old FBI and Kash Patel's operations, and the fact that Kristi Noem jumped out ahead and made stupid, irresponsible remarks before anything was truly known about this incident says a lot about her and the way this department is being run and has been run, and the narrative that seems to be a playbook. And some of you may say, well, what are you talking about? Trust me, I'm going to get to that in a moment, and you'll understand why I'm saying exactly what I'm saying. And again, everyone has their own perspective. You can put something right in front of certain people, and they'll pretend they don't see it, or they'll see something different. Must be something in the water. Let's continue.
that shot right there, I think you're going to have a really hard time saying at the time that officer fired that last shot, at that moment, not because of what happened earlier, at that moment, he was in an imminent fear of death or serious physical injury. But the defense attorney on that case, I'm bringing it different.
Yeah, there are different principles that allow an officer to actually use deadly physical force even when their own life is in danger. There is a principle called the dangerous fleeing felony rule.
Okay, so they're getting ready to go over a couple of rules. And again, courtesy of attorneys on retainer. Let's continue, because these are things I didn't know.
It means that if the officer had a dangerous fleeing felon at the time.
Okay, if the officer believes, so a lot of things are contingent on the belief of the officer. Again, a lot of things are contingent upon the belief of the officer.
They're allowed to use deadly force. What makes somebody a dangerous felon is the type of things that lawyers argue about. But if
Absolutely. Was she a dangerous fleeing felon? They had the tags that they knew that they had just moved there, she and her partner, or she and her wife, that they knew enough, I believe, afterwards, maybe prior to that she was instrumental, or attended many of these things, but there are a lot of people on social media that organize events. There are people in my home state, Maryland, that do the same thing. There was a short up where I had a short interview with the person who said that there were ICE agents pulling people over on the parkway and they were warning people. So this isn't something that's new. So I want to be clear with that. This isn't new. Let's continue.
I was the defense attorney for the ICE agent. If he was charged for this, I would be arguing that the fact that there were all these protesters walking around and there were lots of people, civilians that were in the car. What do we know about this woman? We know she's being non-compliant with lawful orders. We know she just tore out of there, and that she might be heading towards somebody that the officer saw, or protesters. That might be the argument.
Yeah, you can make the argument that that first shot was justified. First shot is justified. Now you got her committing aggravated assault against an officer, maybe murder on an officer, and now she's trying to flee. So you got the argument that now those other shots that look to be unjustified as a self-defense might be justified as intending to stop a dangerous police challenge, because you sort of bootstrap this argument with the first shot. So that's probably the best argument here. If you're going to try to make that final shot a justified shot based on self-defense, I think you got a really tough one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough claim.
So for that video in its entirety, please make sure that you check out Attorneys on Retainer. Again, Attorneys on Retainer. Title: Minneapolis ICE Shooting. Self-defense attorneys break it down. And we are going to go on a quick break. Again, welcome to the weekend edition of Minneapolis Mayhem and more. I'm your hostess, Lise, and when we return, I'm going to show you something that you might find interesting. I think it's interesting, and I believe there is a need for a call of action. So, without further delay, let's get on our break. And this is our number one. We have a lot to unpack. Welcome again. And be comfortable.
Bro, we broke up with you for a reason. Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. You got to win the midterms.
I know you lying. 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 I know
So we are back and we are going to listen to none other than Kristi Noem. Yes, Kristi Noem. And before we get to that, I'm going to listen to a clip from J.B. Prickster. Again, J.B. Prickster on his thoughts on Kristi Noem.
Well, either she can go in a number of ways. She can be impeached, she could resign, the president could fire her. Those are three ways that I can think of. If you got any more, let me know. But those are all open. I would say she should resign. She should make it easy on the president because she's doing a terrible job, knows nothing about Homeland Security, has proven that, and is defending actions that she doesn't even investigate ahead of time. She simply said, well, we must be in the right, and therefore I'm going to claim it's self-defense. I'm going to claim that we must have done everything right. It is possible. All of us who are in government know that it's always possible that someone who works for you, and in this case there's video evidence of it, is in fact not following the rules, not following the law, not following procedures, and in this case, and there's an investigation going on, may in fact be guilty.
So, Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. This is her press briefing on what happened in Minneapolis. Let's go to Forbes. Again, courtesy of Forbes. And this is the voice of Kristi Noem. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
We had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters.
What video were you watching, Kristi? When were they stuck in the snow? See, that's the video that I would like to see. Others might, they may not, but I would like to see that video. And again, operation, what operation? Did someone call ICE and say that it might be undocumented people in the area? What operation was it? Again, was it commencing or concluding? Let's continue to listen to what Kristi Noem said. This is not AI generated. This is Kristi Noem.
Were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene.
You won't speak to it because you didn't know. You are just like Kash Patel, who has made statements when he didn't even have facts. No facts whatsoever. So knowing this, how is it that anyone could trust that any investigation will be handled properly, thoroughly, and without anything, any evidence being tainted? I'm going to say this, and I'm very serious. I don't believe anything that comes out of your mouth or his mouth. Let's continue.
I will let the FBI decide.
You'll let the FBI decide. Kash Patel, how are the Epstein files coming along? Documentation that you were ordered by letter February 27th, I believe, of last year by Pam Bondi. Still working on it? Or have you had any delays? Let's continue.
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation.
Okay, so according to her words, she believes, which she didn't know, that they were returning back to headquarters to start a new operation. Again, what was the operation? Or is it that that's something that the public shouldn't know or wouldn't know? You don't even know because you said, I believe. Why would you even hold a press conference, Kristi Noem? And you were obviously unprepared, just like Kash Patel.
Had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using, but remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those, they all work with us every day in a task force.
Again, just clueless, in my opinion. So let's grab a couple of comments, shall we? Again, that was courtesy of Forbes Breaking News. And Mitchell says, people be lying, knowing they lying, and they still lie. And Sabine says, like there aren't videos all over the internet. And Mitchie says, Forbes, your thumbnail has her old face on it. Please update. And Nunez says, South Park gave us a perfectly accurate representation of dog killing Barbie. Oops. Yikes. Next, Diana says she needs to go and called up for crimes against humanity. She's such a liar. Jim says, I won't speak on it. It's not a breakdown of the lead up to what happened. Absolutely what? What is the breakdown? What led up to this mayhem that happened in Minneapolis? Let's get a couple of more comments. Glee says, I'd ask if anyone is shocked that she just gave a bunch of CYA, that's cover your backside lies. But at this point, her telling the truth about something would be more shocking. So I believe there are a lot of people that, whether they want to admit to it or not, realizes that Kristi Noem and Kash Patel aren't that great on being truthful and transparent. So if you listen to the logic of Kristi Noem as it relates to people using their vehicles to weaponize ICE agents, and we've heard this time and time again. I want to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, something that I find very interesting, and I would like to, if it hasn't been done already, ask this to be a call to action to Governor Wes Moore of Maryland and any other lawmakers in Maryland or whomever may find this information useful, because it speaks again to some of the inaccuracies when it comes to ICE and their reporting and this narrative, this growing narrative, in my opinion, about people using their vehicles. Now, am I saying that this has never happened? Absolutely not. But again, I don't believe in coincidence. And again, this is something I believe should, number one, be fact checked for accuracy. And if found accurate, the call to action would be to have any ICE related incident reviewed thoroughly, and if there's any mention of vehicles being used allegedly as weapons, be investigated as well as the ICE agents. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you exhibit number 1. This was just updated January the 9th, 2026. Anne Arundel County, Maryland is actually, for all intents and purposes, a very affluent area. However, there was an incident that occurred December 24th, Christmas Eve, that has prompted some raised eyebrows as Miss Good lost her life by an ICE agent. Now, does this photo right here look familiar? Not the vehicle, but the positioning of the vehicle. Similar to Miss Good's after the ICE agent unloaded Now, this is what I want you all to pay attention, close attention. And again, I would ask for a call to action to Governor Westmore and anyone else that have these type of incidents. One of two people were injured last month when federal immigration officers opened fire on a vehicle in Glen Burnie. Was already in ICE custody, according to police. Why is that significant? Well, I'm glad you asked. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to that photo and the photos and the videos of Miss Good. Glen Burnie, Maryland. One of two people who were injured last month when federal immigration officers opened fire on a vehicle in Glen Burnie was already in ICE custody, according to new information released by Anne Arundel County Police. Anne Arundel County Police and ICE, they don't work together. So let's look at this a little bit more. The information released on Thursday disputes, raises to question, makes you wonder about the version of events provided by the United States Department of Homeland Security in the wake of the December 24th incident in Maryland. It also came just days after an ICE officer fatally injured a 37-year-old woman in a similar incident in Minneapolis. Initial reports said Anne Arundel County Police responded to a pew-pewing shortly before 11 o'clock a.m. in the 500 block of West Court. Authorities also noted that local law enforcement was not involved in this incident. Okay? Keep this in mind, everyone. Keep all of this in mind. According to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. ICE officers were conducting a targeted operation in Glen Burnie when they approached a van driven by Tiago Alexander Sousa Martins. According to the agency, Sousa Martins is an immigrant from Portugal whose United States visa expired in 2009. The agency said, and again, these are unconfirmed reports, and I'm only saying unconfirmed to be prudent and responsible. The agency said a second man, okay? The agency said a second man, identified as Solomon Antonio Serrano Esquivel of El Salvador, was seated in the passenger seat of the van. Now, this is a statement. Now, I don't know if there is a police report available. Well, no, because local law enforcement wasn't involved. So I don't know what type of reports Homeland Security would keep. And I would imagine, given its patterns, in my opinion, it's probably tainted by now. But again, keep in mind, this is what they claimed. Federal officials claimed that Sousa Martins was told to turn off the engine. However, officials said he refused and tried to flee. We saw And we've seen in many clips, Miss Good was told, asked, yelled at to get the F out of the vehicle. She did not comply. Some may say she tried to flee. But here it says, ramming his van into several vehicles and attempting to run officers over. That's what a lot of people are saying that Miss Good was trying to do, was trying to run over the officer or officers. Sound familiar? The officers discharged their weapons and hit Susan Martins, who then crashed the van. After Miss Good was hit, her vehicle crashed. According to the Department of Homeland Security statement, Serrano Esquivel was also injured in the crash, the agency claimed. Still with me? Both men were taken to the hospital and were expected to recover. That was the statement by Department of Homeland Security. But on Thursday, Anne Arundel County Police said that one of the injured men was not NOT in the van during the incident at all. According to police, he was already in custody in an ICE vehicle. Let's look at that last statement again. I implore you to do your research and to be prudent and responsible. I am going to say this is an unconfirmed report, but if it is indeed accurate, and I have no reason to believe that it is not, given again the history and pattern of Department of Homeland Security and ramming of vehicles. Thursday, Anne Arundel County Police said that one of the injured men was not in that van, according to the Department of Homeland Security statement. During the incident, he was already in custody in an ICE vehicle. So how could that be? Is someone not being honest here? Anyone with information has been urged to contact Anne Arundel Police. And for those truckers out there, those of you that may be doing security, those first responders, those braving the elements, those of you who are doing your Amazon deliveries or DoorDash, those that are just tuning in, that telephone number is 410-222-4731. Anyone wishing to remain anonymous is encouraged to contact the tech line at 410-222-4700. The new information released by the police echoes an account given to the Baltimore Banner shortly after the incident by an attorney who visited Serrano Esquivel at the hospital. Alex Major told the Banner that Serrano Esquivel, a landscape worker, was pulled over by federal agents along with a family member in Southern Maryland and taken into custody Wednesday morning, hours before he was accused. Okay, pay attention to this. Alex Major told the Banner that Serrano Esquivel, a landscape worker, was pulled over by federal agents along with a family member in Southern Maryland and taken into custody Wednesday morning, hours before he was accused of riding in the van that rammed ICE officers. Looks like, again, if this is accurate, somebody made a mistake. Now, there are some people that aren't too happy about what happened in Minneapolis, and one of them is the police sheriff, and she issued a stark warning to ICE. She's basically saying, bring it, bring the smoke.
You don't want this smoke? Because we will bring it.
Those are some tough words from Philadelphia Sheriff to ICE. The folks here sending a message to ICE.
And we have one more from another top official from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. ICE, I hope you're paying attention. States are about to stand up. Now, I don't have a problem of people carrying out what they are supposed to do, but when you are breaking the laws, and this goes for those who are breaking the laws too, you break the laws, they come with consequences. But keep in mind, there's still a protocol to follow. Still a protocol to follow. So, but let's listen to this next warning.
If any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested. You will stand trial. You will be convicted, whether it's in state or federal court. It's my office prosecuting it. That's how the law works. And you will do your time because Donald Trump cannot pardon you for a state court conviction. Do you hear me, ICE agents? Do you hear me, National Guard? Do you hear me, military? You're going to jail if you commit crimes in the city of Philadelphia. You will be accountable. The law applies to all of you. And I know that there are honest, decent, moral law enforcement officers out there by the bushel, including in ICE. This is not for you. This is for any one of your colleagues who thinks they are above the law.
So you've heard that's coming straight out of Philadelphia. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll return to mayhem in Minneapolis, ICE operations, and more. Happy Saturday, happy weekend to one and to all. I'm glad you've taken a moment to spend a little bit of time here. Please, if you'd be so kind, make sure that you double tap your screens, or depending upon the device you're listening to, give this a thumbs up. All comments are welcome. Just please be respectful. I'm your hostess, Lise, and we will be back shortly.
Bro, we broke up with you for a reason. Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me.
Greetings, and we are back again. Welcome to the weekend edition of Minneapolis Mayhem, ICE operations, and more. I am your hostess, Lise, and it is good to see you. Good to see you after a very long week. I'm thankful, though, that I'm in a career that I love, and I don't have time to spend with you all. I missed you. I truly have. But again, I have to work to pay the bills. And again, I'm in a career that I love. And during my breaks, I've been watching some videos. And again, it's the weekend and good to see you. So again, welcome. Welcome, everyone. And for those of you just joining, this is the weekend edition. I'm your hostess, Lise, and we're going over an interesting beginning of the new year. So again, 10 days in 2026, and we already have headlines daily, 24/7, it seems like. So again, I wish you all very happy new year, happy January, and happy weekend. So the next audio we're going to listen to and some video is courtesy of KARE News. Again, KARE News, and it looks like another organization that's been under fire for alleged fraud and other things, but has their voices are being raised. Who might that be? Give you a couple of minutes to see if you can guess. We're about to listen to one of the co-founders of none other, can't make this up, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, and calls for accountability from ICE. Let's roll this.
Renee Good, say her name. Renee Good, say her name. Renee Good, say her name. And we've been like Elijah said, why wasn't the doctor allowed to give CPR or to render aid to Renee after she was shot in the face multiple times by a murderous ICE agent on the streets of Minneapolis? Why did it take EMS 15 minutes?
You know, a lot of people have asked the same question. Why wasn't aid allowed to be rendered? Again, this is the voice and video of Black Lives Matter co-founder who's calling out accountability for ICE.
To get there, why was her body just laying out in the street like that for a very long time? These things are very unacceptable. And also, what's unacceptable is when the BCA says the FBI tells them that they can't do nothing, but we also remember when Ricky Cobb was murdered, that our governor told the Hennepin County attorney here that she needs to drop the case. And that case was dropped when we watched the state trooper open up a door and shoot a black man. And then so we have levels of authoritarianism in our government. We have authoritarianism at the federal level, and we have authoritarianism at the state level. So we're calling on Governor Tim Walz to stand up. Minnesota has the third or second biggest racial wealth gap in the United States. This is an excellent time for Tim Walz to address that and do an executive order on reparations for Black Americans whose ancestors.
So he's calling out for Tim Walz, and you've heard him just mention that this is a good time to start talks and conversations again about reparations for Black Americans whose ancestors descend from U.S. chattel slavery. Let's continue.
This is an excellent time for Tim Walz to do an executive order on the George Floyd and Policing Act. This is an excellent time for those in St. Paul to address and for the mayor of Minneapolis to follow the mayor of York's lead and call for ICE agents to be arrested like Mayor Mamdani has done in the great state of New York.
Okay. Your thoughts and opinions on Black Lives Matter. Speaking out on this. Again, that's courtesy of KARE News. And of course, you know I'm going to grab some comments from that. Again, KARE 11 News. Johnny says, BLM took nonprofit literally, as and none other profit ever reached the people on the street. I knew there was going to be some backlash, but as I said, I'm not biased. I bring you the news and also comments, and I'm not going to cherry pick comments. And I mentioned Black Lives Matter, they've been on fire. As a matter of fact, I believe one of the founders or leaders in Oklahoma, I have a short of, found herself in some hot water. So, Sulite says, well, look who showed up at this opportunistic time. And Toby Noto says, wasn't BLM founder arrested for fraud? And Lucas says, so we're starting this again. And Zeta says, I'm not conforming to the stupidity or the military. And Sulite says again, the law she is quoted actually states the vehicle is operated in a manner that threatens to cause unaliving or serious physical injury to the officer or others, and no other objectively reasonable means of defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. And Rick says, it's like Minnesota is having a I didn't expect this one. Rick says it's like Minnesota is having a scammers convention. Again, that one took me, so you can see I'm being authentic because I didn't expect that comment. And Crystal says, now all lives matter. the hypocrisy. So there is, seems to be a barrage of activists that are about to come out and speak up and make their voices known. As you heard right there, that was one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter. And yeah, fun times coming, fun times. So we're getting ready to pivot a little bit and go to our next audio. And this is going to be a take from Minnesota prosecutors who give updates on their efforts. So I'm not really sure how far they're going to get, but people are trying. Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back very shortly. Okay, now we're going to Hennepin County, Minnesota, and listen and review a little bit of video. Again, this is care of ABC News and efforts for possible prosecution, or at least looking at the idea of prosecution and this horrible, horrible tragedy on all ends, in my opinion. Again, fair use. And this is Minnesota prosecutors give an update on their efforts to investigate the, again, unfortunate situation in the ICE incident. Let's continue.
I want to start by speaking to the loved ones of Renee Good. I am so sorry for your loss. I hope that the memories you cherish offer some small comfort to you in the days that follow. Earlier this week, our community witnessed a horrific event on our streets. Some saw it in person, and many more have seen it circulating online. Whatever your opinion is about what happened, this was a traumatic event. Since this happened, I've been on the phone and in meetings with law enforcement, justice leaders, elected officials, discussing ways to ensure a thorough and transparent investigation, how that can occur, and be shared with our office. On Wednesday, our immediate focus was ensuring that an agreement could be reached for a joint investigation with the BCA and the FBI.
Now, it's my understanding that the FBI will be taking over this, so I'm going to extend this out a little bit for those of you that want to hear the entire video and audio. You can find it on ABC News, but I'm going to go to towards the end.
Recorded over it, something could happen to it. And so this is an attempt to make sure that we preserve the evidence that's out there. And so we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to look at what's there, but it's really too early right now to say what we can and cannot do.
So again, she's saying that it seems to be, or it's possible that it's too early to really speak on what they can and cannot do at this time.
Who at the Justice Department made this decision not to be held? I honestly think you should ask them. Maybe Mary knows more than I do. I was just informed that was the situation.
No, so I was also informed that, the BCA, that as far as I knew, it was going to be a joint investigation based on the conversations we had with the federal government as well as the FBI, and then that changed.
So as you could hear, that appeared to have changed, but we don't know if it's changed anymore. So a couple of comments says, and this is from Chip, they really think we can't see the full video. Lizzie says the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. George Orwell, 1984. Cody says, what's there to investigate? There is literally entire video evidence. Jimbo says, how do such dishonest and unintelligent people get in power? And Travis says, investigation on something we've seen all angles of? Really? And Ghost says, the video is everywhere. That's the only evidence you need to see. And Sergio says, if this corrupt is in charge of the case, imagine the conclusion. Wow. Okay, we have one more video to go over. And this will conclude part 1 of Mayhem in Minneapolis, ICE operations, and more. Again, happy weekend, and thank you so much for tuning in. So this is courtesy of Forbes Breaking News, and this is the Mayor, Jacob Frey, who's holding a press conference. Again, fair use.
How inspired I am by so many community members that have stepped up. They've been providing food to people that have immigrated to Minneapolis. They've made sure that those that are terrified right now.
And this press conference was today, earlier today, maybe 2 hours ago, January 10th, 2026.
The actions by ICE have support, have love, have care, are able to get to the grocery store, even childcare. The way that they have stepped up is amazing. I also want to acknowledge that the vast majority of people have protested peacefully, recognizing that I have seen community members sort of step into the breach, recognizing that there are others out there, agitators that are trying to rile up large crowds. And not only have they not taken the bait, they have pushed others back to the brink to say, hey, you know what? This is what Donald Trump wants. He wants us to take the bait. He wants those agitators to get a hold of this crowd in a way.
And we've heard many people describe the late Miss Good as an agitator. Let's continue to listen to the mayor.
that it makes them cause harm to others and or damage to property. And so to them, I want to say my deepest thanks. We are so grateful for everything that you've been doing. And to our first responders, police officers, Chief O'Hara, to our firefighters, Chief Rucker, they have been working tirelessly. They have canceled all days off. They've made sure that they are out here protecting people, keeping them safe, and showing a true juxtaposition between the kind of public safety and service that we provide to our residents here at the city of Minneapolis.
So he's giving flowers. I'm going to extend this out.
All times. I'll let Chief O'Hara give a little bit more of an update. A lot of it is scattered. A lot of it is unplanned. This is part of the issue, is that this is not a coordinated strategic plan that we're seeing being carried out. In many cases, it's indiscriminate. I've said this before, but I think that the initial impetus to come to Minnesota was go to Minnesota, arrest and deport a bunch of Somali people. And then they get here and they realize that the Somali people that would be arrested or deported are all legal. They're American citizens.
You can thank the gentleman who exposed, and I'm going to get into that later, I believe is Nick Shirley, fraud and daycare. I'm going to put up some videos and ask Mr. Shirley if he would like to investigate some of the things that the VA has done over the years. But the difference is, Mr. Shirley, and you may not want to take this feat on, and then again, maybe you would. Those people that are guilty of those things at the VA, white collar crime, they look like you, Mr. Shirley. So I haven't forgotten about you. I just haven't had time to get to you just yet.
Do that. And so there's not like some meat packing plant or factory where you can go and get a bunch of Somalis. And then they turned their ire towards our Latino community and other immigrant communities that are here. Regardless, these are communities that make Minneapolis a better place. And so to have this kind of scattered buckshot approach that we're seeing that is not strategic in any way, not only endangers these community members that have been here for the long haul, it endangers these neighborhoods that they're rolling through. Minneapolis is on a great comeback, and they're just making it more difficult for that comeback to fully take shape. And so I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hara.
I'm sorry, what was the initial question?
So the question was, can you tell us what some of these immigration
the actions. So the actions are widespread.
Okay, this is the voice and video of Chief O'Hara.
All parts of the city, mainly focused on the south side, and in some cases, northeast part of Minneapolis. There are oftentimes what appear to be arrests made from vehicles. We have had reports that come in of vehicles that are abandoned. We then have to respond to tow the vehicles. At least in one case, we had a report of a person taken from a vehicle, that the vehicle was not even placed in park, and the car rolled, blocking the roadway, and we had to respond and tow it. Another instance, I remember there was a vehicle that was left in the roadway with a dog inside, that we had to respond with animal control and custody of the dog. So it's a number of actions that are occurring on the city streets, and they are happening all over the city.
So just to give
And this is the mayor again.
another example of how reckless some of these actions are, maybe 12 blocks from here, 10 blocks from here, over on 3rd Avenue, there was an ICE action that took place. An individual from a car that was in the middle of a pretty significant street was detained. They left the car in the middle of the street. The car wasn't even in park, and so
Again, this is the mayor of Minneapolis who is giving an account of some of the actions. Again, unconfirmed reports. This is coming from his perspective, from his words of some of the actions ICE agents have been making.
Got this vehicle that is just rolling down the street with nobody in it. And it wasn't a Waymo. This was a car that was rolling down the street that could have hit anybody, including my own family members that live not too far from me. So this is not about safety, clearly. If this was about safety, you wouldn't do stupid things like that.
So we're going to stop that there. If you want to listen to the entire press conference, you may go to, and I would encourage you to go to Forbes Breaking News. Again, that was the press conference earlier today, headed by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. So that is part one, again, of Mayhem in Minneapolis, ICE operations, and more. That there has been quite a few things going on, and okay, looks like there's something going on in Minneapolis. Give me one moment. Okay, there appears to be some type of protest going on, and this is courtesy of Status Quo. There's no audio, but for those of you that are interested, I would encourage you to go to Status Quo. It appears to be some type of protest that are going on. Again, there's no audio at this time. I think they're having connection issues, as I did earlier, but that is the first part of my broadcast. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'm your hostess, Lise. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Please make sure, if you would be so kind, to remember to double tap your screens, and for those of you listening on another device, give this a thumbs up. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend. I'll be back for part two at a later time. Okay, so that's a little bit of the audio there.
Rachel Dion Thunder. Hello and thank you. Thank you to everybody for being here.
So there is apparently a ICE rally after the incident involving Miss Good, Renee Good. So again, this concludes my broadcast. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please be safe, be well, and be healthier.
Bro, we broke up with you for a reason. Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away. Bro, we broke up with...
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason.